The morning sun barely broke through the heavy clouds over Genoa City, casting long shadows across the Newman ranch. Inside, the atmosphere was just as heavy. Victor Newman, the patriarch who had outlasted decades of rivals, betrayals, and storms, sat silently at the head of the table. His sharp eyes, still filled with the fire of command, scanned the faces of his family, Nikki, Victoria, and Nick. Victor's voice carried the weight of generations. "Victor, I can feel it. Something is coming. A storm that will shake this family to its very core. And we must be ready." Victoria straightened in her chair, skeptical yet attentive. Nick leaned back, arms crossed, suspicion written all over his face. Nikki, calm yet cautious, reached for Victor's hand, recognizing that familiar glint in his eyes. This was not a casual warning. This was the beginning of war. Victor continued, his tone steady but sharp. "Victor, Kane Ashby has positioned himself in the center of dangerous currents. He thinks he can manipulate Chancellor, the abbots, and even us. But I will not allow him to destabilize our empire. Jack Abbott has suggested cooperation." At that, Nick let out a dry laugh. Skeptical. "Since when do we trust Jack Abbott in a fight this personal?" But Victor's glare silenced him immediately. "Victor, this is not about trust, Nicholas. It's about survival. Sometimes you fight an enemy with another enemy." Victoria exchanged a long look with her brother, doubt etched on both their faces. But Nikki, with quiet resolve, sided with Victor. "Nikki, if your father is willing to bend, then we must be willing to follow." The room fell silent. The storm outside was only beginning, but inside, the Newmans had already chosen their battlefield. Scene 2, Abbott Communications Office. Meanwhile, across town, the drama inside Abbott Communications reached its own breaking point. Sally Spectra stood in the sleek glass office, staring out the window as if the horizon itself held the answers she sought. 4 months, Sally had battled to prove herself, fighting off whispers that she didn't belong, that she was nothing more than an outsider clawing for scraps in Genoa City's corporate wars. Now, with Billy Abbott drifting back into her orbit, her resolve was being tested once again. Billy, regretful and desperate to prove his worth, had returned with promises of redemption. And Sally, scarred but hopeful, wanted to believe him. But not everyone was convinced. Audra Charles stormed into the office, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. Her voice was cutting, sharp as broken glass. "Audra, tell me the truth, Sally. Are you trying to convince me that Billy's changed? Or are you just trying to convince yourself?" The words hit Sally like a slap. She tried to stand tall, her voice steady but not unshaken. "Sally, defiant. My eyes are wide open, Audra. Billy deserves a chance. And I'm not afraid to take a risk on someone who wants to do better." Audra's eyes narrowed, her tone icy. "Audra, you're gambling this company's future on a man who has failed every single person who ever trusted him. This isn't strategy, it's desperation." The tension between them hung thick in the air. And when Sally mentioned that Billy was already working on Jack, that funding would come once Jack believed again, Audra's expression froze in shock. This was déjà vu, a nightmare replaying itself. Audra crossed her arms and delivered the fatal blow. Audra coldly, "Then the launch is postponed. We will not move forward until the funding is secure. I refuse to let Abbott Communications fall apart again because you chose to bet on the wrong man." Sally's jaw tightened, fire blazing in her eyes. "Sally," through clenched teeth, "Billy is not the wrong man this time." But even she wasn't sure she believed it. Scene 3, Jabot office, Jack and Jill. At Jabot, Jack Abbott was already dealing with the first waves of chaos. His phone buzzed with a video call from Jill. Her expression was taut with both dread and impatience. "So, snappy. Tell me the truth, Jack. How deep is Billy in this time? And don't sugarcoat it." Jack sighed heavily, weariness etched into every line of his face. "Billy's name is tied to this mess again. And Jill, don't try to blame this on Kane. Not everything is his fault. But Jill wasn't buying it. Jill, accusing. Kane's always lurking when Billy starts to spiral. You can't tell me he isn't pulling strings here. Jack's patience snapped. His voice hardened, full of old wounds and frustration. Do you even realize the damage you caused Billy? He thinks you forgave Kane for everything and punished him instead. That wound never closed, Jill. And now he's drowning in it again. For the first time, Jill faltered. The sharpness in her tone dimmed as guilt clouded her expression. She opened her mouth to respond, but a knock at Jack's office door silenced her. Billy stood there, shoulders hunched, eyes pleading. Jack ended the call abruptly. Jack flatly. We'll finish this later, Jill. Billy stepped inside, desperation pouring from him like a flood. Billy quickly. I've reconciled with Sally. We're rebuilding Abbott Communications together. I need your support, your investment. Please, help me make this work. Jack leaned back, staring at his brother with a mixture of sadness and steel. Jack quiet but firm. I've heard this before, Billy. Every time you say this time will be different, and every time it isn't. I can't keep believing in promises you never keep. Billy's voice cracked, but he pressed on. Billy, insistent. I'm done with Kane. Chancellor means nothing to me now. This is my fresh start. But Jack only shook his head, his voice heavy with disappointment. Words don't matter anymore. I need to see actions. And until then, Billy, I can't do this with you. The silence between them was louder than any argument. Billy's shoulders sagged as he realized Jack's faith had finally run dry. Scene 4, Newman Ranch, Victor and Jack. Back at the ranch, Victor and Nikki sat alone after Victoria and Nick stormed out. The heavy front doors opened, and in walked Jack Abbott himself. His presence filled the room with decades of rivalry and grudging respect. Victor stood, his gaze like steel. Victor. So, Jack, are you truly ready to join forces with me? Because if you are, understand this, there's no turning back. Jack met his eyes steadily. Jack measured. If Kane Ashby is the threat you say he is, then yes. The Abbotts and the Newmans may hate each other, but we both hate betrayal more. The tension between them was electric. Two titans of Genoa City, preparing to fight side by side. Scene 4, Newman Ranch, Victor and Jack. Back at the ranch, Victor and Nikki sat alone after Victoria and Nick stormed out. The heavy front doors opened, and in walked Jack Abbott himself. His presence filled the room with decades of rivalry and grudging respect. Victor stood, his gaze like steel. Victor. So, Jack, are you truly ready to join forces with me? Because if you are, understand this, there's no turning back. Jack met his eyes steadily. Jack measured. If Kane Ashby is the threat you say he is, then yes. The Abbotts and the Newmans may hate each other, but we both hate betrayal more. The tension between them was electric. Two titans of Genoa City, preparing to fight side by side. Scene 5, Abbott Estate, Kyle and Claire. But while the corporate wars brewed, another story unfolded with far more personal stakes. Kyle Abbott returned from Italy with young Harrison Lockhart. The boy's innocent face lit up the moment he saw Claire Newman. Harrison, excited. Can you walk me to school? Both of you? Claire's guarded heart softened, and she agreed. For a brief moment, the three of them stood together like a real family, bound by innocence rather than betrayal. But later, as they sat in the Abbott dining room, reality shattered the illusion. Kyle leaned forward, desperation raw in his voice. I want you back, Claire. I'll do anything. Just tell me what it takes. Claire's eyes didn't waver. Her voice was calm, but unyielding. Claire, this isn't about you, Kyle. And it isn't about us. I rushed into this, listening to everyone else instead of myself. I need to make my own decisions, even if they're mistakes. Kyle's throat tightened. Kyle, barely whispering. It sounds like you're breaking up with me. The silence that followed was suffocating. Claire's eyes softened with regret, but her resolve did not waver. I need to choose myself this time. She left, and Kyle sat alone at the table, staring at the breakfast gone cold, his heart shattered beyond repair. Closing montage, Genoa City storm. As night fell over Genoa City, the pieces were set on the board. Victor Newman preparing his family for war. Jack Abbott torn between protecting his brother and siding with his greatest rival. Sally Spectre gambling her future on Billy Abbott's fragile redemption. Audra Charles sharpening her claws, refusing to let history repeat itself. Jill Abbott haunted by guilt, forced to choose where her loyalties truly lie. Kyle Abbott left broken as Claire chose independence over love. The city's air was thick with unease, the kind that comes before a storm. Alliances would be forged, families would fracture, and betrayals would carve wounds that might never heal. And above it all, Victor Newman's steady hand moved the pieces, waiting for the moment to strike.